Las Vegas on the brink. We'll hear all about the diagnosis from Becky Hammon on why the two-time defending champs are facing an elimination game. We're going to hear from the New York Liberty, who have put them there, and we're going to hear from a couple of champions several times over and several teams over, giving us a sense why this series ain't over yet. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to welcome you and thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 200,000 of you showed up in September alone. We've got quite the ride ahead in October as well. We'll keep on showing up for you 6 days a week. And it is not just me, it is the incredible team across the board at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every month on the past, present, and future of women's basketball. We're going to have folks with you throughout the playoffs. We have reporters on the sidelines in the post games talking to everyone in Connecticut this weekend. We will have multiple reporters there. We are sending our reporters to travel to Las Vegas as well, back in New York, back in Minnesota. It all costs money, so support the work. $9 a month, $72 a year, thenexthoops.com. Go enjoy what it is that we're doing. We're sure having a ball. And man, did we last night, Tuesday night, game 2, Liberty versus Aces. The thing I just kept coming back to in this 88-84 New York victory is this is the semifinals? Holy cow. And this is one of these things where, the bracket fell in such a way that by far the two best teams are playing right now, because Minnesota and Connecticut are championship quality. That series, of course, 1-1 going back to game 3 Friday night at Mohegan Sun Arena. I will be there. I cannot wait. That's going to be epic. But so was last night, and not just because the stars were out. Alicia Keys was there, many others as well. Sue Bird, Megan Rapinoe. It was a fun time. And you didn't even have Spike Lee and Kelsey Plum going at it. It was still a fun time. But ultimately, the Liberty prevailed. And it was really interesting to me, the reasons why. Because we talked about this in game 1. I don't necessarily know after game 1 that there were significant adjustments that Becky Hammon and the Aces could make. And this is not to say they were not a team capable of playing better. Becky Hammon is a brilliant basketball mind, and I was eager to see what she would come up with. But you are still talking about a team that has a short bench, that has some things they're going to do. That was part of their brilliance in winning the last 2 championships. You knew that Asia Wilson was going to get hers. You knew that Chelsea Gray could dominate. You knew that Jackie Young could defend the primary perimeter threat. And you knew that Kelsey Plum was an elite two-way player, especially her ability on the offensive end. New York has taken away enough of that at different times over the course of these first 2 games that Vegas would need to pivot. And there's not an obvious pivot point. We're seeing a lot of Alysha Clark, who is super talented, coming off the bench. But man, they are asking AC to chase Brianna Stewart around, and that is hard to do while at the same time being a difference maker offensively. Tippage comes in, and typically the Liberty can send Benijah Laney Hamilton to defend her. Held her scoreless in game 1, not in game 2. And you knew you weren't going to hold Tippage scoreless in the entire series or anything close to it. But they have these multiple options. You got Kayla Thornton you can bring in. Courtney Vandersloot is playing really, really good defense. Courtney Vandersloot had a chase down block in yesterday's game, if you're wondering whether she is bought in. So I want you to hear what Becky had to say about how and why it hasn't been working so far for the Aces. And then we'll be back in segment two, break that down and talk more about what it meant from the Liberty perspective. It's really interesting to me how differently the Liberty won in games 1 and 2. So back with more after we hear from Becky. I'm Howard Megdal, and you were listening to Locked On Women's Basketball.
You can't make mistakes. They're too hurtful. They're too hard to recover when you're playing the best team in the league. And they are the best team. Let there be no doubt. They're the best team in the league. They've played it all year, just like we were last year. Was there a stretch where they were flirting with us a little bit? Yep. But we were the best team last year. They've been the best team this year because of their habits, because of their edge that they've had the entire year, their incredible attention to detail. So we went back, we made our adjustments, which I think were good. But like I said, 22 points off of turnovers, 20 of them at the half, 20 points off turnovers at the half. And then we come out and do it 2 times. You know, they get 2 points in the second half. Like we just can't have those lulls, and I can't call enough timeouts, nor do I want to call timeouts because I'm livid with my own team for layups. Like, let me be mad at the refs, let me be mad at the New York Liberty, like I don't want to be mad at us. And that's what it was. It was aces versus aces tonight. We were beating ourselves.
Howard?
Becky, I just want to drill down into that a little bit. That timeout in the second quarter, it followed a layup, like you said. You know, what are you saying to your team in that moment? And just related to this is a 2-time defending championship team. This is a team that obviously knows what it needs to do. Why is it not happening on this in a way it didn't in either 22 or 23 playoffs?
Well, quite frankly, we haven't had the edge all year. Now, we found it the last month. I feel like we've gained a lot of ground. But the feel was different from the jump. And this is why 3-peating is hard. Let's be real. Like, the whole league has been pissed off for the last 8 months, and my players are in commercials and this and that and being freaking celebrities, and you get distracted. That's why it's hard, because human nature is distracting. And conversely, you know, you think about the Spurs, I do all the time, you know, the Spurs with the Miami Heat. They lose a absolute heartbreaker in Miami off a basic thing, offensive rebound, kick out 3. They should have walked away with the title that year. They lost it that year. The next year they came back with so much drive, so much discipline, so much focus that there was no way somebody beat them in 2014. I mean, that ball was popping, but they took a huge loss. Liberty took a huge loss last year. And I liken it to that a little bit, where they had it, they felt like they had it, and we walked away with it. I did think we were the better team, but we were dealt a really freaking tough hand last year in the finals, losing Chelsea and Kia. So I'm sure they feel like something was stolen a little bit. At the end of the day, in 2 years, we've won here 1 time, Game 4. Other than that, they've kicked our ass.
So you notice that's a lot of team-specific stuff, not player-specific or matchup-specific. And the way in which the Liberty have manifested those team stats changed dramatically. So we're going to talk about that in segment 2. But first, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Miracle Made Sheets. And I got home last night from the Liberty Aces game at 2:20 in the morning. I was exhausted. Thankfully, Miracle Made Sheets were on my bed, and even though fall was here and there was a chill in the air, I slept nice and comfortable. I wouldn't say all night, because you just have to get up early in the morning and there's more work to do and taking children to school, but as refreshed as possible because of Miracle Made Sheets. They're temperature regulating, so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. They look beautiful. They look like luxury sheets because they are, but they don't cost what luxury sheets cost. And if you don't believe me, go to trymiracle.com/locked-on to try Miracle Made sheets today. Now they've got this deal. You've heard me talk about it. You can save over 40%, an extra 20%, and 3 free towels. How? Use promo code locked on at checkout. So again, trymiracle.com is the site /locked on, and then the promo code locked on at checkout gets you 3 free towels. Thank you for Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode and for making me as reasonably coherent as I can be on 4 hours of sleep. Locked On Women's Basketball is also brought to you by FanDuel. The thing you got to understand is that the NFL is going on every Sunday. You probably didn't see it because on Sunday you saw the WNBA semifinals begin, and we saw the most watched WNBA semifinals in 22 years. But it's true, NFL is there. They play other games. They play Monday nights. There's some on Thursday, and you can get a big return if you bet on the NFL at FanDuel. If you place a $5 bet, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Again, $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets, and then follow it. You can follow the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, all of it on the app. So, or even the site, by the way. Go to FanDuel.com to check it out today. So back here in segment 2, and I look at this number, I look at this stat, and it really stood out to me at the time. So I wrote it down. In game 1, and we talked about this, Brianna Stewart was unstoppable, 34 points. Sabrina Ionescu, unstoppable as well. They were efficient. They were the stars. Ultimately, they were the stars late. Sabrina with some late fireworks helped preserve the victory. This beautiful backdoor to Brianna Stewart, final 2 minutes of the game. Just connected teammates to elite players playing at an incredible level. But they were not dominant in terms of their final stat lines the way they were. Brianna Stewart, 15 points, 5 of 15 from the field. Again, a very solid game, but not elite the way she was in game 1. Sabrina, especially late, really effective, finishes 24 points, but on 18 shots. So they made her work harder to get it. 9 rebounds, 5 assists, a block, and a steal. Really great game. Jonquel Jones, 14 points, 8 rebounds. Didn't even get the double-double, which is kind of her like entry-level performance in her view. She has to get a double-double to feel like she's accomplished what she set out to do, which maybe we all have such high floors. But the point being, the Liberty won anyway because everybody contributed. Because Benajelani Hamilton had 8, Leonie Favich had 6, Courtney Vandersloot, and this is the biggest thing for me. This is off the bench. Courtney Vandersloot, 12 points. Kayla Thornton, 9 points. They combined to shoot 9 for 12 from the field, getting 21 points. Aces finished with 10 from Tip Hayes, and that was it. That was all they got from their bench total, period. That's the difference in the game. The Liberty making great use of their bench. Sandy Brondello molding this roster into a championship roster and being able to rely on different people. Kennedy Burke went down with an injury and was able to use more Kayla Thornton, pushed her up to the 4. Somehow she was able to navigate. But Benajelani Hamilton, they were being smart with her, not overusing her, trying to keep her at 25 minutes a game. So down the stretch, take her out with 6 minutes to go. She was an offense-defense sub in the final minute, and she was able to be effective for them doing that as well. There's just too much. There's too much Liberty for them in these first 2 games. You heard Becky talk about it. And so let's hear from Sandy about those decisions. And then we'll be back. I'm Howard Megdal. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball.
Sandy, Kayla Thornton was a plus 13 tonight. She told me this morning that you talked to her about being an X factor. What do you remember from that conversation, and how did she meet those expectations tonight?
Yeah, I thought she did great. She was excellent tonight, and then we had to throw her into the 4 when KB hurt herself there. I said that to Kayla because that's what she is. I thought she could be this X factor in this series. Just the physicality, the toughness, defensively. We know that what she does, but her ability. I said, don't worry about offense. Offense is going to come, but you can impact it with the defense. And everyone has an important role to play. And KT came out tonight and gave us 9 big points just by doing all the little effort things. And that's why I say she is the X factor, because sometimes they're going to leave her open. It's about her making plays as well, but she's out there for energy defensively mostly, and it was great to see the ball go in the hole for her. We ran some plays to her as well, so it was great that she gives us a lot of energy with the passion that she plays with.
Sandy, just to kind of jump off of that, and real quick, for KB okay? Is there any update on?
Yeah, they think she will be okay. She was ruled out for the rest of the game, but it's just precautionary, I believe, so.
Okay, and just on your bench, and just the way, not just 21 points from this bench, but on 9 of 13 shooting. Yeah. And I'm just wondering if you could take me through how important playing this bench the way you have over the course of the year has sort of set yourselves up for at times where you need to give B a rest, at times where, something like this happens with KB, that you guys are kind of set up to win in the playoffs all the same.
Yeah, look, I think, we've all talked about Sluty now coming off the bench, and we just thought that was the best thing for this team, and the best thing for her, because now she's playing with that second unit, where we could get her downhill a little bit more. We wanted her to continue pushing the pace, and getting comfortable in that. That means we always have 2 playmakers on at all times, and it was Sluty, especially in the beginning, she was putting pressure on them. So it was great, we get a little player of the games, and the bench, those 2, they were the player of the game, and this one, because 21 points off the coming off the bench was massive for us, and that's we're going to need it again when we go to Vegas.
Thank you. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Game Time, and I'll tell you, there are going to be some tough tickets coming up this weekend, whether you're going to Mohegan Sun or you're going out to Las Vegas to see the Aces and the Liberty. WNBA semifinals, tickets are going to be tough. You want to know, what's that bottom line going to be? All in pricing. You have to turn on this feature, but when you do it, Game Time tells you, what's that bottom line? You're not looking at, this plus fees, plus the secret other thing. And by the way, you have to give us one of your appendages. It's your all-in pricing, and it's Game Time. So the all-in pricing is actually better than you can get anywhere else. How do I know that? Well, there's a guarantee. They will give you the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Go get good seats for these. These are going to be some incredible games. How do you do it? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. You can even get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Well, it's game time. I'm back here in segment 3 as we head into what is a do or die game for the Las Vegas Aces. I want to give the final word to a pair of champions. And I've had the privilege of covering Chelsea Gray and Alysha Clark as champions, not just with the Aces, but Chelsea Gray as a champion in Los Angeles and Alysha Clark with a championship in Seattle. And so when we think about what Becky talked about in segment 1, it's part of what makes me wonder, because this is not a team that has to be reminded what it takes to be champions. These are champions. Asia Wilson is a champion, and Kelsey Plum is a champion, and Jackie Young is a champion, and Chelsea Gray and Alysha Clark, like I said, a champion multiple franchises over. So I don't know that I necessarily believe there is a mental area to access. I don't know what Chelsea Gray's tank has left in a year where she's navigated, pushed through injury concerns, played in the Olympics, is doing all she can, but she's just not the dominant player she was in last year's playoffs or the year before. There's not a knock on her. And she'd be the first to tell you that this is not a standard she is meeting in 2024. She is doing everything she can for her team. A'ja Wilson is doing everything she can for her team. She scored 24 last night. I just, it isn't that this team doesn't know what it takes. It's a fair question to wonder, do they have 3 such performances in them, including potentially would have to be a third one back in New York next Tuesday night, if they can win and hold home court serve over the weekend? And we will find out. But my question ultimately to Chelsea and to AC was, have you seen it? Have you seen this happen midway through the playoffs? So I want to hear what they have to say. And we will find out. And I can't wait, because it's going to be utterly fascinating to see one of the great teams either do something, come back from 2-0 that we've never seen before, or ultimately see the end of one era and the beginning of potentially another era, whether it's New York, Minnesota, or Connecticut on the other side. So listen to what they have to say. We'll be back with final thoughts. Howard Megdal here, Locked On Women's Basketball. Chelsea, Alysha, for both of you, you have both won championships, not just here, but you've won championships elsewhere. You guys are max effort players your entire career. So when Coach talks about something like edge, I guess I'm trying to understand, obviously you both and throughout this roster know what it takes to win a championship. Why would something like that be missing? And do you both know a way, or have you even experienced a team that finds it midway through the playoffs? Or do you think there really is a gap between what you guys brought this year and what you brought the last 2 years?
I think edge shows up in different ways. I don't think it's always like you see somebody yelling to the crowd. I think you're showing edge by how you dive on the floor. I think there's moments where you get there, like you box somebody else, box somebody out, and they don't even touch it. And you're going and you go get an and one. Like edge shows up in different ways that people show it. And so those little plays and those moments, that's our edge, that's our swagger. When we knock down a shot and we have that energy, and we come back on defense and get another stop and make them call a timeout, that's the edge she's talking about. I don't think there's something in particular that you'll really see, but we know it's there, and it's the energy that we feel in our locker room. And so when she's saying that, that's what I take from it. It's like that locker room and how we kind of communicate and go throughout a game. Like it's us. It's all with each other. And so that's the edge I feel like she's talking about.
Can I just to that end, like, can that be captured mid-playoffs?
Yes.
Okay. So that's Chelsea Gray and Alysha Clark. They leave no doubt thinking it's possible. Becky Hammon was very funny. She had said game 2 was do or die. And she was asked about it after the game. She said, "Oh, I was lying." So, okay. I mean, very fair. I never count out a champion until they're done. And it doesn't mean there won't come to an end. I remember covering the 2018 Minnesota Lynx, and I had seen Cheryl Reeve and Maya Moore, and Lindsay Whalen, and Simone Augustus, and Sophie Fowles just figure it out so many times until they lost to Connecticut in the playoffs. I did not think they would lose. You have to see it happen. A champion has to be knocked out. Champion doesn't go away on its own. So that's what the Liberty have in front of them on Friday night, game 4. That'll be the late one. Early one, of course, Connecticut versus Minnesota. We will be back with you tomorrow, as we are 6 days a week. Continue to give you the blanket and coverage. Make sure you are subscribing to us wherever you get your podcasts, but especially YouTube. We got these Locked On shorts coming to you from every arena known to fans across the landscape. And now, thank you for listening and making us your first listen. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Basketball. There is a league that is rapidly approaching opening night. It is called the National Basketball Association. It is a basketball league for men. So you can become a fantasy basketball expert. It's again amazing, right? We have all these local experts across the Locked On NBA network, but fantasy basketball, they even have fantasy basketball devoted to the NBA. God bless them, right? Daily tips from Josh Lloyd. Get Locked On Fantasy Basketball, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts as the men strike a blow for equality. Be back here with the women's game tomorrow and every day for you 6 days a week. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.